right, as per usual, it's time to talk about the game. It's time to talk about our experience with it in the past and now. And I'm so happy that Jiggy Lookback is here once again, returning guest slash co-host slash good guy all around. How are you? How you doing?
I am doing fantastic. So
Amazing. Even after slugging away at this title at Jet Force Gemini.
I think so. I mean, I got a couple ant heads to show about it.
Yes, exactly. There you go. Exactly. So we'll jump in because I think there's a decent amount to talk about with this game. I mean, it's another one of those big tentpole rare titles, I think, and I don't want to shortchange anything like this because it's a pretty special title. There's a bit of a history to go with it, and did you have a history with this game going back to when you were younger, or is it something again that maybe you played a little bit later or just knew of?
So the second one, a little more, but okay. So my relationship with this game is a little complicated
Okay.
because obviously I'm a big Rare fan, and
Yeah.
I had it in my N64 collection as a kid, and I did not play too much of it. I mean,
Mm.
I think I don't even think I unlocked Vela. Like I
Mm.
just played as Juno, and I remember getting to a specific area, and I got to it again, and I remembered this area because when I was a kid, it actually scared me. And it's like an abandoned church, and there's like the guy out there that plays, like, he's like, "Oh, what have I done?" And he like plays a memory for you, and
Right.
like of him
Right.
like turning the ant people into zombies and everything.
Zombies. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So that scared me as a kid, and I think I stopped playing there. And I just never went back to it until now. And I'm like, I don't know. It was also kind of hard for me. I remember,
Yeah.
like, when I first played it, I was like, this is really hard. And it wasn't something, and even now I was like, this is really hard. Like,
Well, that's
I
not
mean,
that's not an uncommon feeling. I think it
yeah.
seems like online that is, I think they were going for that a little bit. It wasn't supposed to be a walk in the park, but you're not alone. That's for sure. So
Yeah, it's definitely no banjo or conquer that I could pick up and really go through. I mean, there's a lot of thought involved in this game. I feel like even your play style, how you're playing, keeping track of where you are in the level.
yeah,
I don't know if we want to just get into it. We could start right from the beginning, before we get into the levels, because I really want to talk about the intro and specifically that theme music. Oh my
yes. What?
gosh.
Yeah. So I actually have a not too different story than yours going back. I think I mentioned this to you like a few weeks ago when we first said we were going to play this game. I was like, I think I played the first like two stages
Yeah.
and maybe one of the other stages as Lupus because my buddy unlocked it. I never owned this game, but I played it a
Yep.
decent amount at my friend's place who had it. And it would be like, oh, I'm going to play a level. Oh, we're going to play a level. And then inevitably, this was the household where I've told this story before in other episodes, but where we would just take this cartridge out and then the four of us would just play Rampage for the next like
There
five
you go.
hours and
Hey,
go like all the way to the end. Yeah.
Rampage is great.
So it is. It's excellent. It was great. We that for whatever reason, it was that group of the four of us that always played Rampage. And then when we went to one of the other guys' houses in this same group of friends, it was GoldenEye and it was the other Mario parties and like things like that. So
Yeah.
for whatever reason, Rampage took over Jet Force Gemini for us in this one household. But as far as playing through it, not even close. Not even close. I remember, like you said, the music. I still remember like when I hit start or the game booted up and that that splash page just comes on where it has the
Oh
logo
yeah.
and them running and stuff. That music, not only do I think it's so well done and it's very like orchestral and very very awesome, I'd say. Um, immediately it took me back. It took me back immediately. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So you wanted to talk about it. What do you think?
So so the first thing I wanted to say was, and you probably know this, but the fact that it was first a Conquer soundtrack thing, like it was first a
Yes.
theme used in Conquer 12 or 12 Tales Conquer 64, which is just a cool little tidbit there.
Yeah.
There's actually like people had like the footage of the game, and you can be in the Roman Colosseum and it plays the Jet Force Gemini theme, and everyone's like, wait a
Yeah.
minute. Like,
Yeah.
so
Hold on
that's,
now.
yeah, so that's super cool. I just like that. And I feel it does have a very, even all the music honestly has a very rare feel to it, and you don't
Yeah, yeah.
realize that feel. I don't know if it's like the brass in combination with the like really synthy sounding stuff.
Mhm.
Like a lot of Rare music, and actually a lot of the sound effects in this game, I can tell are either reused assets or they're made in a very similar way. Because even things like Juno, like walking in lava or something, makes a splashing noise. I'm like, hey, I know that noise, and I'm like Banjo Kazooie, like
Yeah,
it's the
yeah.
same, you know. So I was getting a lot of that, but that theme definitely is it is iconic.
Yeah.
And even going further a little bit, but not too much, because there is something else I want to talk about that like opening screen, the character select screen, dude.
Oh,
That
yeah,
music, that might be top 10 Rare. Like I even appreciate it. I love the theme song of this game, but
yeah.
that character select music, there's something so epic about it. It's dun 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 dun. And it's like so like
Man,
Star Warsy,
it's exactly what I was gonna say.
yeah,
It is Star
yeah.
Wars.
It's like
It's
Darth
so good.
Vader like coming in and you're like, "Oh, dun
Yeah.
dun
Where's
dun
the
dun dun."
lightsabers?
Yeah, but it's, instead of a dude in a black cape and a big robotic suit, it's a little dog with a machine gun strapped to his back. So
I
that's
mean,
cool.
just as epic, I would say.
Yeah, pretty epic. I mean, yeah.
No, it's true because again, when we were messaging back and forth about it, I think you started playing a little bit before me, and you said, "Oh, just be prepared for the character select screen."
I did say that, didn't I?
And I was like, I was trying to remember it when you said that because actually, I was when you said that the theme music actually cued in my head pretty similarly to what it is, but not exactly. But I was like, oh yeah, I think I remember what the theme music is. Okay, and then I played, I think later that night or the next morning or something, I started playing it, and yeah, the second you get to even it's just Juno running on the
Yeah.
treadmill thing, like even just that. It's not epic because there's epic things going on. It's just flat out epic shit in your face, meant for like a blockbuster movie or TV show, and it just goes fucking hard and it's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. And even just the little touches in that menu of like, so you said they're running on treadmills. So every character
Yeah.
is just running on a treadmill. They pull up a symbol like to the left of them that's supposed to represent them, which honestly, I could never keep track of which one was which.
Yeah, they look a little
I
too
was like,
similar.
I was like,
Yeah.
that's kind of a missed thing. But I thought it was
Yeah.
cool that they show like for some reason like an X-ray of their body or something on the right,
Yeah.
and it's bizarre, but it kind of fits that. I don't know. They're just this is how they're doing. This is their health. This is their like their body is like their condition. And I was like, it just kind
Yeah.
of adds like a weird like sci-fi kind of
Yeah, it just
thing
adds to
going
the
on.
layer of the fact that you are somewhere else in the galaxy and this is the technology they
Yeah.
have. And
Yep.
I think it'd be cool if that was reused somewhere else in the game. Like maybe that was your health bar or something. I'm fine with the way that the health works in this game, doesn't bother me or anything, but if like I don't know, part of the health logo was that like the body, maybe they couldn't pull it off, maybe just too much power they would need to kind of do that while the game's running and everything. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's just another layer of detail that's really they didn't have to do. You could have just had their face with that
Yeah.
music and it still would have been cool. But there's a lot going on. They're on like a ship and
Yep.
the treadmill, like we said, and when you spin around and pick the different characters, the whole thing shifts as if you're, moving around the room and like all these mechanical sounds are happening. It's a lot of detail going on in something that really you just flick the joystick a couple times and press A and you move on. And it's like it's
It's
great.
functionally the same as Donkey Kong 64, but it's so much
Yes,
it's I
yes.
mean, as much as I love that character select just because the characters, like, call out each other and it's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
funny, but
yeah.
it has charm. Excuse me. It has charm, but Jet Forces is just it's so over the top for what it is, right? So,
Yeah. Over the top sci-fi and all there's other over the top details that we'll get into
yeah,
and stuff. But
that was
but yeah,
somebody's job, and they went hard. They're like, "If
yeah,
this is the one thing I'm doing in that game, this is it." You
yeah.
know?
It's gonna kick so much ass. No
Yes.
one's gonna play this game. They're just gonna sit at this menu the whole
Exactly.
time.
I even looking on Reddit, like I'm in a lot of like rare game forums and everything and going in,
Yeah.
and that was one thing that somebody said. They're like, that character select screen is easy top 10. And I'm like,
It is.
yeah, yeah.
I
And
cannot disagree. I think the music in general in this game is great. Again, like you said, a lot of rare games are like that. I
yeah,
think it's be hard pressed to find one that isn't at least enjoyable on some of the stages. And they're not, none of them are throwaway. And on top of that, we'll get into like playing the game itself and stuff too. But as far as sound goes, since we're on that topic, there's a lot of voice acting in this, which
yeah,
I didn't. There's not a ton, but there's some every once in a while that you get. There's some like, and when you don't, you get some like sound effects of when everyone talks, kind of like
yeah,
Banjo Kazooie, things like that, little,
yeah.
and like that's a little like
Yeah,
personality thing. So like they went for it on all the different levels, I think, and whether someone's talking or whether you're reading it, whether there's sound effects or not, when someone's actually talking, the writing is really kind of fun and cheeky
I
and everything
love.
too. Like,
Okay, so before we get too segue, I just wanted to bring
yeah,
up
yeah. Sorry, I'm
one
everywhere.
thing. Well, there's so much to talk about because there's so
I
many
know.
different little details, and
There's
I'll
layers
try
to
to
this
cover it
game.
all. Yeah, there's layers.
Yeah.
That's a good way of putting it. So in that first title sequence screen, it's so cool how depending on how far you are in the game, the title sequence like changes. Like what's happening on
Yes. Oh
screen.
my
So
god.
so you start
Yes.
at the beginning, it's just Juno running, and then it's like as you unlock the characters, they show up on the title screen, and then depending how far you get, like at one point you get better armor and stuff, and then it replaces them, and then they all have their different outfits on, and it's just
Hmm.
it's just a cool little touch that I don't know. It's just neat. It adds another layer to it. It makes you
Yeah.
feel
No.
like you progressed and that your team is more, I don't
Yeah,
know.
exactly. Yeah, and I kind of so I mostly played this. I have the cartridge and I played it, I think, I don't know, 3 or 4 stages or something like that on the 64. And I was like, I'm going to try it on the Rare Replay because I have that. I have Game Pass
Yeah.
and it has all these games on it, and I heard it helps with the control scheme, which, can be hit and miss depending on how you like the game and everything, but it's not a huge difference, honestly. We'll get into that, but um I didn't remember all that much about that detail that you're talking about with the title screen, because on the Xbox you can just put your Xbox to sleep and the game goes on suspend, and then you can just pick up where you left off. Like you press pause, I'll turn the Xbox off, and that's it. It's basically
Yep.
like putting your Switch, pressing the power button on your Switch, kind of the same idea, right? Modern consoles, they all have that now. So
Yep.
I forgot about that, and then I had to restart the Xbox for an update or something like that, and then I opened it back up, and this was like after I had Lupus, so this is like a couple hours later at this point, and they're all on the screen. They're in a different spot. Like one of the other stages is like, yeah, this is great. I forgot about this.
Yeah, it's just a little thing, but it's
Yeah,
cool
it
and it
was a
has an
nice
impact.
surprise. Yeah, it was a nice surprise. Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, should we move into how the game looks? Because I'm
Yeah,
I'm
let's do it,
I'm
man.
kind of curious. I'm kind of curious of the rare replay situation because I only played it on the 64, and there's a couple thing, and I'm gonna incorporate performance with the graphics because I feel like they
Sure.
go hand in hand.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they're like graphically, it's okay to me. I
Okay.
can't. I've heard people say, "Oh, it's a great looking rare game," and I'm like, there are some aspects of it I'm like, "Wow, this looks really good," and then other aspects I'm like, "That looks kind of goofy." And the big thing that I couldn't seem to get over, it was particularly with Juno, is his legs when he runs. They're very square, and they move
Yeah.
in a weird like diagonal, like kind of ice skating look. Oh, I got it. I know exactly what it looks like. Juno runs like Ezra Miller as the Flash. That kind of like ice skating, kind of like, why
Yeah,
is he
because
running
his
like
arms
that?
swinging. Yeah,
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 it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
why is
That's
he
true.
running like that? You know?
Yeah, it's like it's a whole. It's a. I mean, running is a full body experience, but when you watch him run compared to the other characters, yeah, it's like a full body, arms, legs,
Yeah,
kind of looking thing. Yeah, no, that's a good point. It is
he's
what it is.
he's really the only one that. I mean, the other two look fine when they're running. So I don't know.
Oh,
I didn't.
especially Lupus. Like he doesn't.
Yeah, he's on
There's
all fours.
he actually looks pretty good. I think his
Yeah,
motion and everything is pretty good. Yeah. So as far as the graphics go, I think for the most part, yeah, I like it. I like the design of the
yeah,
enemies. I think is unique enough and everything. All of that stuff is fine. But that's like art style. That's design. That's not necessarily what the detail is, so to speak. So like I think that like the way things move and everything, like Juno, for example, and Vela too. Vela.
I think it's
Um,
Vela.
yeah. I don't know. I'm questioning myself because I get things wrong sometimes. So
The names are crazy.
they are.
Juno,
They're
Lupus, Vela. But then the best part is that the tribal leader is named Jeff.
yes,
You
yes,
know,
and his
that's
brother's like Bobby or something. Like I don't something like
yeah,
that. I don't
Barry, I
know.
think. Yeah,
Barry, that's it. Yeah, it's like
Barry.
okay,
Yeah,
so
we'll
weird.
get into that a little bit later, but
Yes, we will.
yeah,
Yeah, so I
crazy.
think yeah, so when I was watching sort of some of the animations and things like that, I think most of the detail seems like all the little grunts, all the little ants are the ones that have the most like
Yeah, for sure.
distinctive running and stuff. They're kind of hunched over when they run, and then when they shoot, some of them might be propped up a little bit. The guys with the shields use their shields in different ways depending on which one it is. The big guys look different, but they kind of don't move or anything, or at least most of them don't. But then like Juno and Vela are running, and it looks like to me it looks like they're running on ice. That's
Yeah,
that's kind of what it
yeah,
looked like.
skating.
Especially when
Yeah,
you're strafing. When you're kind of strafing, it's like, oh, their legs move, but their upper body doesn't. So like their
yep,
legs turn to the left or the right, but their body's facing forward. And you know, it is what it is.
yeah,
It's not a
exactly.
huge thing, but it does look awkward if you really look at it. Um, I think though that I think for the most part the rest of the game is pretty good. I think yeah, I like the way it looked. I don't think it's one of the best, but it's unique, and I think that's why
Hmm.
it stands out. Is because it definitely does not, based on character design and weapons and
Hmm.
stages and the way all of that stuff is structured together in the story and how you progress through all these stages and everything. I think that's why it stands out, and
Yeah,
that's why people might say like, "Oh yeah, this is why this game has its own unique style and all that kind of stuff." So I think that's what it is for me. Is I appreciate that, but as far as the way the colors and the animations and whatever, it's good, but it's not fantastic. So I'm not
yeah.
too far off on you. Yeah,
Yeah, and I will say that this is one of those games on the N64 that I was like, "Oh my gosh, my shadow's an actual shadow," which
yeah,
I don't know why I always look for that because I'm so used to like even Ocarina of Time. You have two little things for your feet. Mario 64, it's just a black circle. It's
yep,
just a thing with platformers you get. And later on in the 64 life, they actually became shadows, and I was like,
yeah.
I always see that, and I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That
it's just one of those added things that they put in, and like one of the reasons why at the time all the sort of the some of the research that I've been doing so far in the game is that you're mentioning performance. There
yeah,
was performance issues, especially on the console. On the Rare Replay, I think I found some like it's funny. I found some bugs, but nothing that was game breaking and no
sure,
major performance issues. But that's because now it's been ported over and they've kind of gone
right.
over the code and whatever, right? But this game definitely could have benefited from having the expansion pack because it really would have given the console a little bit of an extra boost. And I didn't run into any of it, but I spent most of my time playing on Rare Replay. So that's why I
Yeah,
didn't hit it. So it sounds like
yeah,
you ran into some stuff.
yeah. So nothing, no glitches or anything that really held me back, other than like two times I did have my game freeze, which
Oh,
I it, I've ne- I don't have that very often on the 64, and I don't like I remember it as a kid happening. It's just a thing
yeah.
with the console, occasionally like your game would just freeze and stop, And so,
And there's no way to do anything about it on a console. You just hit
yep,
the reset button and
yep.
that's
I
it.
was so
Yeah.
ticked though because it was during a moment. The last one I remember was during a moment I was trying to collect all the tribals, and I got to like the last one or two, and the game froze, and I was so mad. I had to stop playing for like probably 30-45 minutes because I was just frustrated. I'm like, of
Yeah.
all times, why couldn't it have happened at the beginning? It had to happen when I was
Yeah.
close to the end.
Oh,
So, but that is more of a fluke. That's not telling of the performance of the game. The
Right,
things I
right.
did encounter were like in rooms where there were a lot of enemies coming at you, or a lot of drones specifically, I think,
Hmm.
when they would fly at you and the frame rate would dip. And it's not unbearable. It's not like, I would say Tui had worse performance issues.
Okay.
Like, and I love Banjo Tooie, and I totally can get by with those issues that it has. But it's noticeable, and especially I think there's moments, and I could be totally wrong on this. I don't know if the frame rate's unlocked, if it's like they
Mm.
try to cap it at 30 or keep it consistently around 30, or if sometimes it gets up, because there are moments where there's no enemies. I'm running in a hall or a cave or something, and it seems very smooth, like almost 60 FPS smooth. Like it's very, like it really got up there, and I'm like, wow, this feels great. And then the second enemies show up, it's like boop, back
It-
down. And it's not
right.
it's not chugging, but it's definitely like working.
Well, it's noticeable. It's noticeable,
Yeah,
and it also changes the way that your feel for that scene or for
right,
that instance, right? Like,
right.
even if it wasn't running extra fast or extra smooth or whatever, and it was running normal, and then all of a sudden it chugs down just a little bit, just
Yeah.
like any other frame rate drop. It's, and you want to be precise with your weapon or with your traversal or whatever it is. That makes a difference.
Yep.
It throws you off. You don't feel like you have the feel anymore. That's why people don't like that, and that's why it's unfortunate when it happens. But I didn't run into that stuff. The only thing I ran into was
Yeah.
every once in a while, when you have to kill all the enemies in order to unlock a door. The door wasn't unlocked, but I couldn't see an enemy anywhere. But I could hear
Mm,
one every once in a while, and every once in a while, the little red indicator on the left or the right of my screen would go
yeah.
off to tell you that one was like around the corner or just out of sight or whatever.
Interesting.
And then I would throw a grenade at like the corner of the wall where that sound was kind of coming from. And then I would just see the green blood come out and it would die. And then the door would open. So that happened a
Oh,
couple of times. Yeah.
yeah,
So
and
it
that's
just got
not on the
stuck in the wall.
64.
Yeah. So it
That's
spawned into the wall. It wasn't shooting at me, which is interesting. It's not like it was,
yeah.
seen through the wall. And I couldn't see it. It's not like I could see the antenna or its foot or its gun sticking out of the wall. I could just hear it and see the indicators, and that's it.
Wow.
And the guns wouldn't do anything because the wall was in the way. So I
Yeah.
used grenades in order to get an explosion. And one or two grenades later, I was like, okay, the door's unlocked. Like,
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Yeah, nothing like that happens on the 64. At least
yeah.
not to me, but I will say it was kind of annoying when you do kill all the enemies and then one is like laying on the ground
Oh, spasming.
just
Yeah.
yeah, then there's just it's just a matter of time before they just perish. But for some
Yeah.
reason they add that detail and they sit there for like 10 seconds and you're like, why isn't
Yeah.
this door opening? And then you turn around, see it on the ground, and then it starts to disappear and you're like, oh, okay. And then the door opens.
Yeah. You hear the flies buzzing. That's how you know that the one's
Yeah.
on the ground. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is like another one of those details of the game that is like extra gruesome in a game that is sort of lighthearted and sort of like not family friendly, but sort
Yeah.
of like geared towards maybe slightly gamers, but also not. And I'm just like, is this game supposed to be violent or is it not? Like, I don't like, I
Yeah.
know they're just bugs, but is
But at the
it?
same
Like,
time, they give you guns that can like explode things like giant
yes,
rockets, and these bugs they explode and there's blood everywhere. There's like
yes,
bug blood everywhere, and it's
yeah.
clearly like trying to push that rating. It's teen, right? I think it's teen. I don't have it right in
Yeah,
front of
it
me, but
is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, which makes sense. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with
yeah.
that, right? I think that makes sense. Um, but like those weapons, the gruesome
Hmm.
stuff, the sort of like, and like when you have like a bunch of enemies that say throw a grenade, and it's just like, I'm overwhelmed. I got to throw
Yeah.
something, and even if they don't die, the blood splatter is just like it's like it's
It's
all over you.
everywhere. It's
It's
everywhere.
everywhere. The
Yeah.
sound effect doesn't stop. Like it's just all these details. Yeah, it's green. They're bugs, like I said, but there's something about that feels this like this mix of attitude and mix of tone that this
Hmm.
game. I don't know what kind of balance they're going for here. Like I've seen a couple like clips and interviews and things like that from even like 15 years ago when people were talking about this game and it was only 10 years old and being like, yeah, we wanted to strike this balance and stuff. And I don't know if they struck the balance or if they should have just gone to the full teen or mature side or should have just dumbed it down to be a little bit more
Yeah.
child friendly. So it's stuck somewhere in between. I think playing it is totally fine for the way that works, but that balance I think was a little bit off depending on what mission and what area you were in,
Yeah.
and what weapons you were using. I think
So
also mattered.
yeah, and so getting into it, we're kind of like crossing the line of the gameplay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Let's
Uh,
do it. Oh yeah.
so the gameplay, um, it's kind of I'm not it's not bad, but it's not great either.
Hmm.
It's kind of in between, and I don't know. Again, I don't know what it is on the Rare Replay. Like, if you can you use twin sticks? Is that like
No. So what happens is, and I
really?
wrote, yeah. So that's one of the reasons why we'll get to this. Eventually, like we're gonna be playing GoldenEye on here because obviously we are.
Yeah,
That the version of that on the Xbox, not on the Switch, but on the Xbox is twin sticks. Is modern controls, and
yeah,
it's great and it feels great. The game is the same game, but it plays even better. They modernized it. It looks nicer and cleaner, and it plays much better. Fantastic. With this, the right-handed joystick, the right joystick, or whatever, if you flip your controls, are the C buttons. So
okay.
it's your strafing, it's your jumping, it's your crouch or crawl or whatever. So instead of using, is it the left bumper, or what do you use to aim? No, right bumper to aim.
Yeah, right bumper. Yep.
Yeah, so now it's the left trigger. So that's sort of modernized, I guess. And then shooting is the right trigger. Makes sense. That's a little bit natural, but
Mhm.
it's the same thing where, like, if you're kind of overwhelmed and you're shooting, especially the guys that are flying in the sky, regardless of which ones they are, it's really hard to stand still and shoot a lot of enemies at once. But it's
Yeah.
also very difficult to move at the same time because my hands could not move left or right with that right joystick easily without
Yeah.
jumping, crouching, and aiming at the same time and pressing the trigger. So it's a
Yeah.
very hard. I really could not wrap, like, in a clean way, I could not wrap my head around making that a consistently successful kill or room clear. So it happens sometimes. And when I did, I was like, oh yeah, I did it. But then the next room, I was jumping by accident because the joystick just moves this tiny bit up, or I was
Mhm.
crouching by accident because it moves slightly down. So it was a little bit unruly, I think. So that part of it on the 64, I actually think works better, even if it's not
Interesting.
clean. But it actually I thought it would feel better because I'm used to holding an Xbox
Yeah.
controller
Yeah.
for the last 20 years. So I thought it would be fine. But because you need the strafing in some way in the game, they had to implement that some way, and they just made the C buttons the joystick. So it's fine, but it made the game more frustrating than it maybe could have been. But I also don't know what
Yeah.
the solution is because you have to strafe somehow. So
Yeah, that's really
yeah,
interesting because I think actually like movement and the strafing works pretty well on the 64 controller. It's
I agree.
really the part that's okay, so there's two facets that make it frustrating. And the first thing is aiming with the stick is very difficult when you go into so when you're running, you basically have like an auto lock on that you can kind of just blast away and
Yeah, if,
it'll
if you're
it'll
close
shoot.
enough, yeah,
Yeah,
it'll shoot. Yeah.
but if a drone's flying, for example, or heaven forbid, a freaking sniper sitting in a tree, you gotta go into this manual mode by hitting the R button, and then when you
Yeah.
do, you aim with the stick, and the stick is just so like the sensitivity. And I don't know, I didn't really look if there's an option to adjust the sensitivity.
There isn't. I
I just
checked.
assumed there
Yeah.
wasn't because it's a
Yeah.
Nintendo 64 game. Like they didn't think of
Yeah.
that. But it definitely is like so sensitive because the slightest movement
Mhm.
just sends it flying.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, it's not bad, it's not unbearable, but it's definitely something that takes a lot of getting used to because
Mhm.
it's not ideal.
No, it's
But
not. And certain weapons you realize will work better in certain situations, which
yeah,
just in general is what happens with shooters. That's totally fine.
yeah,
Um, but I tended to use some of the same weapons over and over
yeah.
again because I
Okay,
could control them better,
let's see. Let's see.
So
What weapon did you use the most? Be honest, because it's probably the same one I did.
it's the machine gun.
Yeah, it's the machine gun.
It's
Yeah.
got to be the machine gun,
I
right?
just they
Like,
yeah. Yeah.
It
they
just
set
has
you
to
up.
be.
They set you up. It's like the machine gun's clearly the best gun of the game, followed by maybe the tri-rockets, I would say.
Yeah, I was
Just
because they're pretty strong. They have a blast radius at least a little bit.
yeah.
Um,
And
some
you
of
can
the
just boom, 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 just keep it going.
yeah, and when you get the
Definitely for
like
bosses.
yeah, for bosses it's great, but when you get the like up to like 20, 25 shots with the tri rockets, it's pretty sweet because you don't have to worry about only having 5 or 10 bullets and not being able
Right.
to like
Right.
make
Right.
that
Right.
work, right? And then with the machine gun, for the most part, you get up to 100 to 200 to 250 shots pretty easily, or pretty quickly within like a few stages for each character.
Yeah.
And then you're pretty comfortable with it, but like anything that's flying in the sky, unless it was like moving really fast or unless it was really far away, it was the machine gun every time.
Yeah.
Because I don't care if I missed 70% of the bullets, as long as one or two hit them, they were going to drop, and that's all I needed. I just needed to get them out of my way.
Yeah.
So,
I
like,
think for that particular instance, like the drones flying, yeah, the machine gun's great. I also think the pistol actually works fairly well as a backup that you can just
yeah, yeah,
kind of do a line and just keep firing and just boom, 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 boom.
yeah.
It's just obviously more limited than the machine gun. I found the
But it's
machine gun
accurate. It's pretty
yeah,
accurate, which is why it worked. And it was easy. For whatever reason, it's probably just in my head, but I found the pistol the easiest one to control. It's probably just in my head though.
yeah. No, I think I no, I think there's something to that. I think it's the rate of fire and you feel like you want to just one shot it. So you
Yeah,
kind of line up your shot first. Similar with the sniper, except the sniper has
sniper.
just
Yeah,
way less ammo. Um,
yeah. It needs more shots.
yeah,
I
it needs
liked
way more
using it. It
shots.
needed more. Yeah, it was
But
fun.
the machine gun I actually found like the ideal weapon for killing the enemies with shields
Yes.
that hold it up because
Yeah.
there's like small windows where either they're running away and you can
Hmm.
shoot them from behind, or you can kind of shoot around them and get like their arms sticking out or their legs sticking out.
Yeah.
But the machine gun, you just kind of hold Z and forget about it and just be like, they're gonna die eventually. So
Yeah, you just spray, literally just
yep,
spray the scene, like working in media like I do. When someone goes to a crime scene or goes to a crash or
yep.
something like that, and you're there after it happens, and they're kind of cleaning up the area or whatever, the camera guy says, "I sprayed the scene," which means he just took a scan of the whole
Yeah,
thing, took a couple shots. Basically, I'd walk into a room if they had shields with the machine gun, like you're saying, and I would spray the scene.
there you go.
That's what I would do. And there would
There
be
you
dead
go.
bodies there, just like there might be at a crime scene.
Yep.
So,
It's it's just that machine gun. It's the
yeah,
best overall weapon. It's used for a lot of different things. And coincidentally, I think maybe the shotgun is the worst weapon.
yeah,
I'm
I
trying to think.
really wanted to use it
Yeah,
more, and it's cool because just like any other shotgun, when you get close, it's effective. I thought it was going to be good against the guys with the shields at like a sort of medium distance because it would spray a little bit, but it
meh,
did nothing against those guys. And I tended to use it maybe against some of the bigger guys on the stages, not bosses, but the
yeah,
bigger guys sometimes, and maybe for the regular ants. But then, yeah, it was not.
yeah,
I'm with you. It was disappointing.
yeah. And you can charge it up, right? So
Yes, which is a
when you
cool idea, but I don't
it's
know.
really I think the best use case is A, if you're out of ammo of everything else and it's all you have. But um just like those big enemies that kinda stand still and you can really
Yeah,
line up your shot and then maybe drop
yeah,
a couple hits. But
yeah.
even bosses that are similar to that kinda just tanks and take a lot of hits, you still don't really wanna use it.
Yeah,
Um,
it was one of the last resorts, you're
but
right. Yeah.
it is really cool that they give you such a wide array of weapons and things. Like, you have grenades, you have remote mines. Granted, you really don't use a lot of those. Like,
Yeah.
they're really if you run out of ammo, like, it's just, "Oh, another thing to have ammo for if I need
It
it."
it's in a
If
panic.
my
That's really
machine
what it
gun
is.
runs out of ammo, I can use something else. Uh,
Spray the scene in a different way. That's
yeah,
start
exactly.
tossing grenades.
Grenades,
I
grenades.
like the way that the grenades kind of work. You can kind of throw them higher. It's not like it's a standard just, hey,
Right?
throw it forward and that's it. So like you can aim them, you can kind of bounce them off a wall. You can shoot enemy grenades out of the sky, like
That's
when they
cool.
throw them at you, which
Yep.
is so cool, which I did by accident a couple times. I was like, whoa, what just exploded? Did someone shoot a rocket
Yeah.
at me?
If
And I
you're
realized I
accurate
shot a grenade. Yeah.
you're
I mean,
accurate,
it
get
was
them in their hand before they even throw it.
it's
like
so
it's
cool, and then they
satisfying.
drop it. It's great. Those little details are really cool and stuff.
The
But yeah,
one
I think I'm
thing
with you on the grenades
the
and
one
the weapons.
thing
Yeah.
about those grenades though, and just things that create explosions, you can actually kill the tribals, which are something that you
Yes.
want to collect, and
Yes.
you actually need to collect. So
Yes.
it kind of makes you want to be careful with how you use rockets or grenades or things like that in the game, which is kind of a bummer. I I don't know if I don't know if I dislike the idea that you can kill the tribals because it's kind of funny, but I don't like it when the game so at a certain point the game requires you to collect the tribals. So
Yeah.
to progress. And so you need to go back and collect all of them. And so it can be frustrating when you're in a room with enemies. Say the grenades are all you have, you use it and you accidentally kill a tribal. Well, they work like the music notes in Banjo. You have to restart the level if you want to collect them all.
Yeah.
Except
Yeah.
except you could in Banjo at least you couldn't kill them and they couldn't disappear, you know.
They were just like Mario coins, really. It's
Yeah, you just have to
so
find them. On this one, it's like, "Oh, I
yeah.
killed it. I gotta completely restart. That was the last
I mean,
one."
that is very frustrating. I mean, when you messaged me just a couple days ago saying that you need to collect all the tribals to get to like the final boss and everything, I was like, well, my goal was to try and get most of them because I wasn't trying to avoid them. I was like, oh, I found
Yeah,
them, great.
yeah,
I liked finding them. I was like, oh, they're cute. I want to save them, especially
yeah,
like the baby ones
yeah,
with
with
the
the little
pacifier in their
pacifier.
mouth.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I love one of the details where if you can't see it and it's like up on a ledge or something, they like throw an axe at you to tell you that
yeah,
they're
yeah, yeah,
close.
yeah.
That is so fun and adds like this little like almost like desperate personality that they have because they're like, say if you
Mhm.
look, I'm up here. I know you can't see me, but look, hey, hey.
Yeah,
But there's no voices, right? So they do I love that
yeah.
little detail and
I'm
stuff.
not
But
coming down to you,
yeah,
but I'm
I
here, so you come up to me and grab me
yeah.
and carry me down.
Yeah,
That's the way I
especially
take that.
especially Lupus. You got jetpack, man. Get your ass up here.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
exactly.
this is your
Ugh.
job. But like, so then this is also part of the tribals are also part of this like um, tone balance that I was speaking about before, where they're cute, but there's also a very serious situation. You know, when you
Yeah,
start the game, they're all being rounded up. Some of them are being shot and blown up, and there's red blood, which for some reason feels like it's more real, even clearly
yeah,
it's not. They're crying. Like there's all these tonal things in there that are very adult, but they look cute. The sound effect when you save them is cute. Um, you know, there's this sort of like friendly mentality to it. And I don't know if because I'm in Canada and I know that in the US this show may or may not have reached a lot of people, but I don't know if you know the show Fraggle Rock or the franchise of Fraggle Rock at all. It's puppets from the Henson Company. So
I
same
I've heard of it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, so
I'm
they're
gonna
sort
look
of
up a
like in a
picture right now
yeah, look it
because
up, yeah. So they're sort of like in a forest. It's sort of like foresty, hippie-looking Muppets is kind of what it is.
yes,
And
yes,
yeah, and I used to watch it as a kid, and it was sort of like this just before you're a teenager type of mentality and jokes and stuff in it. So as a kid, it was like, oh, I'm just watching different Muppets, and I
yeah,
didn't really understand what they were saying. This game is kind of like, oh, these are Fraggle Rock characters where the world is in the forest and they look kind of tribal and kind of different or whatever. It's
mhm,
a little bit serious, but it's also kid like, and I wanted to save them all because I wanted to save them all and to be the good guy.
yeah,
But every once in a while, there'd be something where something funny would kind of happen when one of them gets hurt or dies, and I was like, should I be laughing at this?
yeah,
And I couldn't
yeah.
figure out if I should or if it was intentional.
Well, let's just put this note into game devs and things like that, that when
Yeah.
you have something to collect like that, especially like a character or something, don't make someone have to collect all of them. If
Yes.
like make us collect 50 tribals or
Yeah.
something, you
That's
know?
what I thought I had to do. That's why I was like, I'm gonna get most of them, and that should probably be fine.
Yeah. No, you have to go back. It forces you to backtrack. But interesting enough, forcing you to backtrack kind of reveals mechanics of the game that I actually wasn't aware of when I was playing up until
Mm,
that point. Like I did not, and maybe it just said it. And I'll just say this about the plot in general. Like other
yeah.
than that, there's that first cutscene where Juno's sipping on coffee. They're all just hanging out, and then
He's
they're
got his
like,
feet up on the desk, and
yeah.
yeah,
And then all of a sudden they get raided, and they're like, we got to go. We got to whatever. I was not following the plot at all. I mean, I don't
okay,
know. I know like Mizar is the bad guy.
yep,
But this is stuff that I learned because I played the game and I like sat through like later. I was paying more
right,
attention, but
right.
at the beginning, like I don't know why it was hard for me to follow. It's not. It's like
It's not overly
okay.
complicated, yeah.
It's like okay. We're some sort of space crew. There's alien insectoids. Why are they attacking us? I was like, I didn't get that. I didn't get that we were the last remnant of a like
Just a
police force of the
space
galaxy or
force, yeah,
whatever.
exactly,
I
yeah.
didn't get that. I was just like, why are they attacking us? This makes no sense. And then we get to this island and the guy asks for help. And Juno's like, yeah, of course. And I'm just like, I don't, this sounds like his problem. It doesn't, I mean, like, I mean, definitely, if I was in that situation, my first priority would be to find my sister, who is apparently my
Right.
twin sister, which I also didn't pick up on.
That
But
didn't they don't
I'd
look
be
like
like,
twins.
find my sister and find my dog would be my first priority. And which
I'm
it
with you.
kind of is, but then I'm like, okay, and if I see these guys, yeah, I'll try to help them, but I'm not gonna,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but
But, like, I don't need to find your pants, man, like,
yeah,
I
that was my favorite mission of this game, though. I'm not gonna lie, I was laughing so hard. I'm like, that is such a rare thing. Like that is
oh,
such a
man.
rare where
So
games like
funny.
he's like, well, I was so scared and they took my pants, and then you have to go like climb the tree like in the
Climb
next
a tree.
area. And they're like they just chucked him up there, and that was so funny. That mission was so I wrote that mission in my notes to talk about because I was like that was
It's
so good
hilarious.
and it was so
It's
random.
it's so silly. The only thing about that, and this is a design choice or it's limitations of the game or the
Yeah,
console or the cartridge, whatever, is like when you picked something like that up, I didn't know what I was picking up. It just made a sound to tell me that I picked something up that was good because it was high pitched. I was like, "Oh, okay.
okay, yeah,
What do I do? Where I can't check. I mean, I can
yeah,
check to kind of
yeah,
but it would be good if it was one of those things that you needed like that in order to progress. Really, it would be good to have like a little indicator near your health bar or
yeah,
something
yep,
that looked like a dude's pants or something, like just anything. It didn't have to have a fancy graphic. It could literally just be the word pants, and I'd be like, okay, great, I got the guy's
yeah,
pants.
I
Like
got
just something.
pants.
Okay, sweet,
Yeah,
I got pants. Can I customize my character now? Like,
yeah,
just anything.
I did the reverse. I talked to the guy first and got the mission, and I was like, oh, that's funny. And then I was like, where do I find these? I almost wish I found them first because then I would have been like, what did I just grab?
Yeah,
It's
that's
like,
what it was. I was like, oh, there's something in that tree. I'm gonna pick it up. Maybe it's not a weapon, but maybe it's
yep,
whatever, some sort of thing. And yeah, and then the guy's just like, thanks for returning my pants. Like, cool. Like, I mean, it looks like you're wearing
yeah,
pants, so I don't know what the problem is, but okay.
yeah. And
It's-
like branching off to finish the thought of the different mechanics.
yeah.
So once you reach a point, you get armor that lets you have a jetpack, but that's
Yes.
besides the point. That's actually not what I was going to bring up. I didn't know that each character had their own specific thing that different. Like in my mind, when I was playing as Juno and I switched to Vela, I'm like, well, Vela's just Juno, but a little bit faster, and I just find her like I was having more fun playing as Vela than Juno, and then Lupus
But
even
they
more
feel the
so.
same. They feel the same. They
They
feel
feel pretty
pretty
much the
pretty
same, and I'm like,
similar.
why
Yeah.
would I want to play as Juno when I can play as Vela, and why would I want to play as Vela when I can play as Lupus? Because he
Yes.
can fly.
I
Only to
agree.
realize that Vela can swim. I'm like, okay, well Vela has even more value, and
Yeah.
then Lupus can fly. So I was kind of like torn between those two. I'm like, okay, well this one's more for exploring. This one's like gonna help me in the level. And then I found out later Juno can walk in lava, and there was a very specific. I think it's actually Mizar's palace
Yeah, there's
or
lava
or
in there.
something.
Yeah.
There's lava in
Yeah.
there, but I didn't
Yeah.
know that Juno could walk on lava. So
Same.
I found the secret hole that I went down, and
Yeah.
then I'm going through all the tunnels, and I'm like, how do I leave? I'm like, I was literally stuck for like solid 45 minutes, and I just kept
That's
going. I'm like, I've been in this tunnel before, and I kept looking, and finally, I'm like, okay, I cave. I gotta look it up. I'm like, how do I leave Mizar's palace? Juno walk through.
yeah.
And then I found this lobby thing and it was like, oh, leave on the lava. And then I was like, What?
Why
I
would you
can
assume
walk on
that?
lava? I can
Yeah.
walk on lava? I didn't even attempt to do it because when I was particularly I think it was Lupus, I flew over that lava
Yeah,
to get to
yeah.
that bottom section. But at one time I missed and I landed in the lava and got hurt really bad. So I was like, oh,
Right.
well, lava's bad,
Yeah.
which is
Well,
a sane thing to think.
I think that's I think
Yeah.
I haven't stepped in lava in a long time, but the last time I did, it hurt. So, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I think Ed Sheeran can confirm that stepping in lava is bad if you heard that story a while back. But yeah, so I don't know if they tell you that at some point that Juno can do that.
I missed if they did. It was something that I had to look up as well in a similar way. I definitely did not give myself 30 to 45 minutes. I was just like, all right, I want to keep going.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
really tried. I really tried to do this game without like any walkthrough or
oh, same.
anything.
I always try to. Yeah.
So difficult. It was like
Yeah.
I found myself. So part of the charm is exploring and
Hmm.
finding new areas and everything. You're like,
Yep.
whoa, that's really
Absolutely.
cool. Which is really cool to do when you're playing through the game. It's really lame to do when you're backtracking and trying to collect all the tribals. And you're like, oh my gosh, there's
Right.
an entirely other planet that I need to go to or whatever. Which happened as Vela for me. And
Yeah.
it just added more to it. And um I just found that navigating like a lot of places like even just looking at the first world like Outset or is that what it's called? No, that's a section of it. Goldwood.
Uh,
Goldwood.
uh, yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Goldwood, that first world when you go in like everywhere kind of just looks the same and you're like did I walk down this way? And then you're kind of
Have I been here?
re-navigating the same areas or maybe they're
Hmm.
slightly different and it's really hard to tell. It's just one of those games. It's kind of like you got to keep exploring till you find stuff, which is
Yeah.
cool and I appreciate it. But trying to do something and complete a game for like we're trying to complete this game so we can talk about it on the podcast. And I was like,
Exactly.
dang, this is not for the faint of heart. This is for someone that's
Yeah.
like they really need to go in and they really need to pay attention to where they've been. Like it's enjoyable, but you will be frustrated, and it's not something to do if you're trying to get something done.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the other thing is like getting something done is kind of a way to put it too, because for me, games like this or a lot of open world games nowadays,
Hmm.
especially, look, I love the Spider-Man games. I love the Horizon games. They're fantastic games. But if I put that thing down for a few weeks and I was kind of in the middle of a region, even if I wasn't in a main quest and I was like, I kind of had an idea of what my path would be for the next couple of hours, I find myself to be overwhelmed, even though I shouldn't be, because there's
Mm,
just everything looks unfamiliar suddenly, even
yes.
though I've been in
Yeah.
that area for so long. And with this, if I put it down and picked it back up, even if I was playing on Rare Replay and I just hit play again and immediately went back, I was like, why am I in this hallway again?
Yeah.
What am I? Was I
Yep.
supposed to go left or right here? It kind of looks the same. This is a 64 thing. It's not really just this game because textures and all that kind of stuff can only go so far. So it's kind of the generation of games. So I don't blame this game specifically for that, but it definitely is a problem when you're going through like the palace, for example, and especially as in some of the Juno sections, like was the first time that I went there,
Hmm.
it was like I feel like I'm running down this hallway 17 times.
Yeah.
And some of the items, like the coins, respawn
Yes.
when you go
That
back.
doesn't
So I'm just,
help.
and yeah, so I'm just like, well, I think I've been here. I think there was 4 coins down this hallway, but
Yeah.
maybe it's slightly different. So I, it's deeper than I expected the game to be, and it's longer than I expected it to be. But some of it feels like just design and all of that. But all of this stuff that we're saying, it's still fun to play though. Like
Yeah.
I still had a good time going in and shooting all these ants and baddies, the small details that we're talking about, like you mentioned, like right off the top, like little things like collecting the ants' heads, like those types of things were just like, I forgot that was a thing, and I started picking them up, and it's like, oh, you collected this many in this stage. Oh, you set a new record or whatever when you
Yeah.
check
Yeah.
back, and all that stuff's it's fun. There's all these
They
little
also unlock
details that
cheats if you didn't know that.
yes, exactly. Yeah. I didn't at first. I was
I
wondering why I was
didn't.
collecting these things.
Same. I was like, why can I collect these? I didn't really
Is it a
notice I was
currency?
collecting
Like,
them until later. I was like, is there a shop or something that I go to? Which the
right.
shop, the dialogue, like another one of
Yeah.
those, like when you're
He's
ending, it's
so
like, get
cheeky.
away, you ugly thing, or
Yeah.
like it's just so
When you want to close and walk away from the shop, yeah, they your
yeah,
character basically says like you're gross and freaky. I'm getting out of here. It's like,
yeah.
couldn't you just like walk away, not saying anything? Like, didn't your mom teach you not to say anything bad if you don't have anything else to say? You know what I mean? Like, just walk away or just say
Mm-hmm.
bye. Like, just
Mm-hmm.
why? It's so weird. It's so funny. Also, the
Speaking
shop
of
is like, okay, it's not,
yeah, yeah,
fine.
there's no I used the shop maybe twice,
Yeah,
the whole
same.
thing, and it
Yeah.
was
Well,
just
you
to
have to
fill up.
find it first.
Yeah, it was just to fill my ammo too. It
Yeah,
wasn't like
exactly.
I I I don't think I ever got a game over. So I don't know if there's any game
No,
over
me
splash
neither.
screen or anything.
Me
Like
neither.
they give you like 2 tries every level, right? Or 3 tries?
Two or three, but sometimes it's in separate sections of the level,
Right.
right?
I
So
think they give you 3 and then they give you 2 like retries, but they start you off like you have 3 lives total.
yeah, yeah, per
So,
like planet, I guess you could call
yeah.
it. Yeah, and yeah, like things got close sometimes, but it's does a pretty good job of balancing like losing health and picking it up and those
Yeah.
types. I found like a couple times I died, especially on bosses and stuff, which were mostly pretty good, but that's usually where I lost my
Yeah.
lives was on the bosses. They
Yeah.
were they were pretty good. I don't know. I don't know if there was one that stood out to you the most or
So, I'll tell you which one I hated.
yes.
Um so I really hated it's like 2 grasshopper looking dudes. There's 2 of them,
Yes.
and they
Yeah,
jump at
they're
you.
for like praying mantis looking things. I think
Yeah,
that's what they are.
yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, praying mantis because they have the arms.
Yeah.
Yeah, freaking hated those because they so the thing about this game is when you're locked in a boss battle, you only move side to side, and then you rely
Right.
like just on aiming. So it fundamentally changes the gameplay right there.
So that's where the
Um,
controls on the Xbox actually worked better was because I
yeah,
didn't have to worry about, anyways. Yeah. So it
yeah,
actually
that
worked
makes
better that
sense.
way for me. Yeah.
But like the first boss is kind of, I mean, if I'm remembering right, that may not be the first boss. I'm thinking of like it's like a B drill or
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
from
Yep.
but
Yep, and then the second one is like the looks like you're in like a sewer tunnel, and then I think it's the mantis guys after that. I think that's the order.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and the mantis guys, they have multiple, so it's not like you can just shoot at it and damage it. You have to
yeah.
hit specific areas of it, and I think that just coincides with the aiming mechanics, but also at the same time, I don't think you can always just hit it. You have to time it.
At
So
a
you
certain
hit
amount, yeah,
at a
certain point in
certain
time.
time,
Yep.
and that is what frustrated me because
Yeah,
you'd like highlight it with the reticle, and then once it turned red, that was kind of your cue to lock in and shoot.
and it made that
And
sound effect, that like blinking
yeah,
sound effect thing. That's how you
yeah.
knew when to do
And
it. Yeah,
so for anybody wondering, okay, this is kind of this is my little tidbit. Those the arms, if you're struggling with this boss, just use the tri rockets for right away. And just
yeah,
if you nail it, you can knock their arms out in like 1 or 2 hits tops. So you can
yeah.
knock out both arms, and then they try to attack you with their tail. Switch to the machine gun and wait for it to poke over, and then you can kind of blast it, and it'll turn red, and that's your indicator. And once it stops turning red, stop firing, conserve ammo.
Yes, exact. That's the issue.
And then
Anyways, go ahead. Yeah, keep
and then
going.
if you're at a point where you still have tri rockets, that's kind of your ideal situation. And then they'll attack you with their head, and then you just time it and smash them in the head. But that is the only boss I think that I really like had to keep playing to beat. Like the rest, I was kind of like 1 or 2
Yeah,
tries max. But that one, I
yeah.
was like over and over and over, and it was like, dang it. I kept running out of ammo is the reality of it. Like I ran out of ammo for the
Well,
machine gun and the tri guns,
yeah.
and then everything else is like, why am I even here?
Yeah,
Because
that's the problem is that you if you don't know that you have to shoot things at a particular time, which is the case for at least one of the other bosses before that, but they have larger hitboxes, they're not moving as fast, they're not jumping around as much as these guys are, so it is less frustrating, but I did find between the tri rockets and the homing missiles, as long as you had a decent amount of those, excuse me, as long as you have the homing missiles, the lock on the homing missile, as long as you have that gun still
Oh,
pulled
yeah.
out, stays on where it needs to shoot. So if you could get the
Really?
timing, yeah. So if you could get the timing correctly, it stays on it. And if I knew that it was about to turn red after I figured it out and died a couple times, of course,
Yeah.
then I would shoot it just before it was going to turn red. It would slowly go towards it. It would hit it, and that's how I would get my hits.
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of cheesed that one specifically. I did it for, I think, the one in the sewer, like in Vela's boss as well. But I had less bullets at that point, so it was a little bit more difficult. And that enemy was closer, so I could use other guns that were a little bit more effective, like the machine gun and stuff is a little bit better there. But yeah, that's how I did it for those guys specifically, because the pieces you have to hit, especially like the tail and the head, are so small
Yep.
and they're so far away from you and they move so fast that it's like, well, is this going to be a 15-minute fight, or can I actually beat this thing in like the next 4 or 5 minutes like the other ones?
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah, it's a
I'm
little bit frustrating. I felt less frustrated maybe than you did, because the controls felt a little bit more intuitive when it kicked into that
yeah.
different mode. So
Yeah.
the strafing, I didn't have it. I didn't need a separate button to strafe anymore. I just needed the left joystick. So that felt a lot better. But it was, or sorry, I didn't need to press the other trigger in order to aim. The reticle was always up,
Did
right? So it
you
was one less thing that I needed to use.
did you strafe and run like constantly, or did the using the Xbox controller kind of hinder that? Because every time I was running forward, I wasn't running forward. I was holding the C button like to the side, so I'd always be running like forward right. I'd almost be always running diagonally rather
On
than
an
straight.
angle, yeah. I
Yeah.
so that's what I remember always doing as a kid, playing this on the 64, and that's what my habit was. And immediately when I picked it up and put the
Yep.
cartridge in, but because of the way that the joystick works, because it's sensitive, the slight movement a little bit up or like halfway up on the moving the joystick up like a sort of quarter circle would
Yeah.
make me jump.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was a lot harder to do that. So the
Mhm.
strafing was not as beneficial as the game probably wants it to be. Like the game
Yeah.
wants you to be strafing because it's a better way to avoid like the snipers, like you were saying,
Yep.
and all that. Like that is key to avoiding a lot of those shots that are hard to hit from a distance. But I was running into losing a decent amount of life in those instances because
Interesting.
I couldn't strafe a lot. Yeah. So I was like, so sometimes there were some levels where I could see a sniper in the distance, but it couldn't see me yet. And I
Gotcha.
pulled out, and this is even before I had the sniper rifle, I'd pull out the pistol and just get the reticle enough to hit the snipers because they only take one bullet or one
Yep.
laser. And I would shoot them from a distance. And then now I wouldn't have to worry about them when I ran into that area. So, I kind of cheesed the program a little bit in the game, but I knew from dying 2 minutes prior that
Yeah.
that would help me. And I just sort of figured out a way to
I
do it.
just
So,
the strafing is so helpful, especially
yeah.
with the drones coming in because they're
Yes.
often in a line, and so I just aim in one spot, and then I just hold the joystick and strafe to the right and just keep firing, and it was just like you
Yeah.
just go down the line mauling them, and
Yeah.
it was good.
Yeah.
So just pushing us forward a little bit, I think we talked
Yeah.
about quite a bit of the game. There is a little bonus character you get added to your team, which is Floyd the robot.
Yeah. Floyd. What a name. Great name.
What a name.
Great name for a robot.
Yeah, and, so he joins your team, and you have to find the parts, and that's cool.
Yeah.
And then, Mizar is the big bad of the game,
Yes,
and
we have to get to this to the
yeah.
big bad and the whole. Go ahead. I'm gonna let you carry this. Yeah.
So I'll just say, at first you fight it, and you beat Mizar's palace. You have to get all 3 of your squad members to Mizar's lobby and his palace to unlock the boss fight, which is a feat because every character you have to progress through a certain amount of worlds to all meet up and be on the same world, which
Yeah.
is kind of an interesting way to do it. I liked
I
that their
I
stories were
like
different.
that. I like that. Yeah, I like that the paths were different. You weren't playing the exact same stages just because they're different characters and could swim or apparently walk
Yeah.
on lava or fly. Uh, you're still playing different stages, different perspectives or whatever, and then you're meet. Like I like that. I mean that made the game definitely feel more epic and big.
Hmm.
To a way that I didn't remember because, like we discussed earlier, we never really played through the entirety of it or anything. So, yeah. Anyways,
Yeah, and it's just one of those things that it does make backtracking a nightmare, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true. That's true.
I think the thing that makes it a nightmare really is you backtrack to certain areas and you have to figure out what character you need for that area to complete it. So,
Right.
like, if you go back to Juno's first level, it might not be Juno that can get all the tribals. It might be Vela, or it might be Lupus. And you have
Yeah.
to be selective and kind of like, but you may not know that until you're like 10 tribals in and you need one more. And that one is like above you and only Lupus can hover over to it.
Yeah.
It's a little frustrating. It's not make or break. If you have a guide, it's probably a lot easier.
Well, it
Which,
would be nice if the tribals didn't respawn every time you went. Like that, I
yeah,
think
if
I
you
think that,
collected
like we
them,
were
that would
saying,
have solved it.
if you
Yeah.
collected them and it just stayed that way, I think that would have at least made
Yeah.
it a little bit better because you'd be like, "Oh, I have one more," and then maybe you see them up in a tree, but at least you're not going through the entire stage and doing every last little step
Classic
to get to that point.
Banjo-Kazooie design choice with the musical notes. That's what it is again.
Yeah, it's true.
Just a
It is.
not good way to do it.
Yeah.
It's not make or break, but it definitely makes it more difficult than it needs to be.
Yeah.
But so anyways, you get them all in the same spot. You fight the final boss and Lupus takes charge initially.
Mhm.
Um and I I mean that fight's super easy. It's a cakewalk. You don't really have to do too much, and he kind of just retreats. And he's like, "Well, if I can't have my way, I'm gonna go destroy your planet." And then he flies up to an asteroid, and then they prompt you to go collect all these ship parts to repair this old ship that can reach where you need to be, and tribals. So you not only have to collect every tribal in the game and backtrack to every world, get every tribal, but you also have to get the ship parts. And the guy, Jeff, mother grabbing Jeff, like holds the last ship part hostage. So like he's like, you have to find all my people, and I'll give you the last ship part to save your planet. It's like so selfish. I can't believe it. I just don't like the guy. I don't like the
Like,
guy.
dude, we've come this far. Isn't that enough?
Yeah,
I'll
it's
go back.
enough.
Let me defeat the baddies. I'll go back and I'll save them. It doesn't have to be right now.
Yeah, yeah. He's a jerk. Jeff's a jerk. And so going up, you get to this asteroid, you find Mizar, you fight him, you beat him, and it's revealed, hey, this is like a robotic body. And I was laughing when I saw this because it comes out and it's Barry, Jeff's brother. And he's like, Barry? And he's like, I hate you, Jeff. He's like, I hate everything about you. I hate being in your shadow. I hate being your brother. Like, you suck. And he's like, apparently he was, and I may have be misremembering, but he's like, I wasn't actually going to blow up the earth. I was just threatening to do it to like make my point across. And he's like, my body, I like with my robotic body, I could have stopped the detonation, but he still actually did a detonation or
But he's
something.
still, yeah.
And so,
He had a
Floyd,
bomb in his hand. He's like,
yeah, he had a bomb in his hand. And like, so Floyd, I guess, makes the heroic sacrifice, which is sad
yeah,
because he was a pretty cool little robot dude. He just flew
yeah.
around and he had little gameplay, his own gameplay without the thing. Once you unlocked him, which we didn't mention, but you can stand on a pad and he would like come out. You get this like first person like ship control.
Mini games, yeah, little
Yeah,
flying mini games. Yeah,
pretty fun.
you know what it reminded me of, and they're pretty much all like this. They're just kind of in different settings. Is if you ever played any of the Star Wars Super Nintendo games when they would put you in the Millennium
Yes.
Falcon or
Yep.
another ship,
Yep.
that's what
Exactly.
it felt like. Because that all of a sudden that those games went first person, and you're kind of dodging and shooting things every once in a while. It felt just like those. The
Yep.
controls were just as somewhat wonky as those ones
Yeah.
were. It was,
They're
but
very
it was kind
short.
of cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's very short. It's
they're
only a
very
couple
short.
minutes. Yeah, yeah.
And it just made me bring up a point I didn't bring up in the control section when we were talking about gameplay. So I'll just
Yeah.
briefly say it, but I really dislike how the game almost plays like a platformer, a third person
Mm.
shooter platformer. Like it feels fine. And then once you get into battle, it switches to tank controls for better or worse. Like sometimes it
Yeah.
works really well,
Yeah,
but
pretty much. Yeah.
I found it frustrating when I wanted to like move out of the way and I wanted to just turn around and run like a normal like platformer controls, and then all of a
Right.
sudden you'd stop and you'd have to like back up like reversing a car, and I'm like, oh, so that
Yeah,
was
you have to turn right around, all the way
yeah,
around in order
yeah.
to, like, go the other way. Yeah.
So that like it just switches automatically, which I
Yeah.
whatever, it's
I
fine,
see,
but
to me, other than maybe those specific scenarios, I liked like, to me, I like third person shooters and games much more
mhm.
than first person these days. maybe it's just sort of lost its luster on me a little bit. I don't know what it is, but I like third person. I was excited to play this for that reason. And I kind of like how it's like half first
Yeah,
person, half third person when you shoot. So like to me, I kind of like that idea. You pretty much are playing an FPS at that point, but you can still see your character and you're still moving around. All the controls kind of almost stay the same and stuff, like almost feel the same. And I don't know, I like that part of it, but I know what you mean. That part, that scenario like that is a little bit frustrating. And I guess I gave it a pass on that because it's a game from the late 90s and 2000,
yeah,
and it is what it is, so I just
yeah,
kind of let that go. But your point is made, and I think you're not wrong. At the
yeah. I
same
just
time.
I just had
So
to throw it out there because I was like, ugh. But
yeah, fair enough.
again, it wasn't make or break. It was just like every once in a while, it would make a
Exactly.
frustrating situation, and I'd be like, all right, well, that
Yeah.
sucked.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, otherwise, I mean, pretty solid. Game's pretty funny.
It
I
is pretty funny. And we mentioned Star Wars earlier, just as we were talking about the ending. The ending of this is 100% Star Wars because they all walk into this big
yep,
auditorium
they get a medal.
and they get a medal. All the other, fighters, which apparently there's other fighters. So let's see more Jet Force stories,
Yeah,
please. And yeah, they get a medal, and then like the ships are flying over top, and all this stuff. And I was just like, oh, this is great. I didn't play any of this very ending fight or anything because I didn't get all the tribals. I just
yeah,
my my story of reason why I couldn't finish is because my furnace busted in the house, and I just wasn't home for a few days, and it was just way too hot in the house because it wasn't blowing any air from the AC, so the whole house was just baking at
yeah, yeah,
just anyways. So I just whatever. I took the stuff to my parents' place, and that's it. And so I watched the last, I would say, half hour of the game, roughly somewhere in there, or at least an efficient playthrough of the last half hour, and then watch the cutscene and whatever. But it's just
yeah,
like the Barry thing, the Jeff thing, the twist at the end, and then the Star Wars. And then did you watch the credits?
yeah. When you're dancing in the nightclub.
What is happening?
Okay, wait.
What is
Oh
happening?
gosh, there's a mission where you go undercover as an ant drone and you go into that nightclub.
Oh yeah.
So it's like a little, yeah, it's a little thing for
So it's a
completing
nod to
everything.
that. But
So yeah,
but it was just it's so
pretty
funny
funny.
because the tone, again, the whole tone thing of this is it's epic, it's Star Wars, you have your medals, you save the day, everything, the ships are flying overhead, whatever, and then it cuts to black. 2 seconds later, it's Juno doing, Disco Inferno in a
Yep.
nightclub, and everybody's dancing and stuff. And I'm like, what is happening right now? This is
Yeah.
so all over the place.
I think I said something in my notes. I said Fortnite moves have nothing on Juno.
Yes.
So
Yes. There you go. Never mind the I don't even know what the
oh,
moves are called anymore, but like bring those into Fortnite. How
I am
about that?
so glad I wrote this down because
Okay.
I totally forgot about it and I just looked at my notes. So Juno and Vela high five at the end when they get their medals. They like high
Yep.
five, and I said they never actually touch hands, and it made me laugh because
They
they're like,
don't?
well, they're like high five, and they're just like, shh, and there's like, like it's just the models and the animation, like they
Yeah,
just
it
never
just didn't
actually
happen.
touch, and
Yeah.
it's just
They
so
didn't touch
funny.
squares. Like they didn't touch a
They didn't
square.
touch. They didn't
Yeah,
touch at all. It
anything.
was like there was a gap of air between it, and then they put their hands down.
Well, you know what? They're twins. They're siblings. Maybe it was just a secret handshake. We just didn't know it.
It
Maybe it's just
could
a thing
be.
they do. Like the
Could
whole
be.
Fresh Prince half five. Psh, that thing. Maybe that's all it was. Maybe
Yeah.
that's what was happening.
But it was yeah,
So
it was funny.
it's there's aspects of this game. Obviously, there's things that probably could be refined and whatever. I was a little
Oh
bit
yeah.
disappointed that the Xbox version wasn't more refined, but it didn't make it a terrible experience. But I think overall, I still had a good time playing
Yeah.
this. A lot of it is the epicness of it, the ideas that are in it, variety of enemies, weapons, like we were talking about. Like, there's stuff in here that's really good. Is it a complete home run? Not
Nah.
really,
Yeah.
but I don't think that it's far off. I don't think that it's a complete disaster in any way. And there's some fun to be had, but definitely expect to, I think you mentioned it earlier, to dig into this a little bit more than maybe you would have expected. I think
Yeah.
you're definitely going to have to sink a lot more time into this, even if you do what I do and don't complete the entire game and get all the tribals. There's still a lot to do and a lot of fun to be had. And then
Hmm.
you know what? If you can't find them all like I did, I was fine with watching the ending and stuff. It happens, you know. You can't finish everything, and you can't spend your whole life playing one game for a month and stuff. But I think it was a good time. I still think I really enjoyed it. I still recommend it. Just be prepared for
Mhm.
some of the things that we were talking about.
If
That's all.
I had to give it a number, because I'm a give it a number kind of a person, I'd probably give it
Yeah,
like a 7.5 out of 10, because I
yeah,
think
yeah. I'm on the same page. Yep,
it was good. It wasn't great. It was definitely the reviews at the times, a lot of like kind of B plus was kind of the sentiment going around, like,
yep,
80s out of 100, stuff like that. And I'd say that's I'm probably more in the C plus territory, maybe leaning toward B minus. I think
yep.
there's a lot of elements of it that make it good. I think like graphics are decent, the music's phenomenal, the story's fine, the gameplay is sometimes clunky but overall fun.
Yeah.
It's just not perfect. It's not as refined, but it is. You'll have a good time playing it, except for the part where you're like, "Oh my gosh, I have to collect everything to finish the game."
Yeah,
Which
that's a not
that's
great.
just that's just a little frustrating to me. And
Yeah.
for that, that's what brings it to, like, if it didn't have that, I'd probably give it an 8, because it's
Well, no,
enjoyable. But
I think it makes a difference. I think it absolutely makes a difference for
yeah,
sure because you don't feel in some ways it feels like you're not wasting your time, but it feels like what you've done up until that point, even though you didn't complete it, feels less than when it
yeah,
shouldn't, you know?
yeah.
So I think that there's something to that for sure. I think you're onto something. And I once you told me that I had to collect all of them, I know I wasn't
Hmm.
close. And I was like, "Well, I'm not doing it. Thank God I'm not home right now to
Yeah,
play the game
yeah.
because I
Ugh.
wasn't gonna do it." So, I took a few days off from not playing it, but I still was thinking about it afterwards. I was still, thinking about us talking about it, but also thinking about just the fact that I had a good time. I like the ideas in here. Most of the execution's pretty good, but there's some of those things that could improve upon. And hey, if you got some time to sink into it, even if you only play like half this game, as long as you get all three characters and experience like a couple stages per
Yeah,
character, I think you'll have a good time getting to that point, and you'll probably play the best parts of it. I think if you
and
do that, and that's probably
there's fun
enough.
multiplayer too. If
Yeah,
anybody cares about that, multiplayer is great. So
if you can get that running on a 64 with some friends, I think it's worth a shot. Why not? Yeah.
yeah,
And you know what?
the
I
art
still
is cool too.
recommend. Yeah. Yes. Exactly. I still recommend. I mean, I think the controls feel, which is crazy to say because normally this wouldn't be the case, but the controls feel better on the 64. But I still think it's worth picking it up on the Xbox controller if you have Game Pass. It's on Rare Replay, or if you have an older Xbox generation,
Mhm.
pick it up. This game and all the other ones on it are well worth the price of admission, I would say. So, yeah, that's right. That's Jet Force Gemini, everybody.
Yep, that's it.
We beat it to the ground, just like or we cut the head off Jet Force Gemini, like all the ants that we collected, and
Yep.
I don't know, whatever the term is. I don't know what it is.
We blew him up into little bloody pieces across the world. We picked it up by the head and we said, "Here, world, we're not collecting the rest of these tribals. We're done."
We're
And
done. We're going to YouTube.
yeah, exactly.
Actually, perfect transition, which is exactly what professionals do. They mention their transitions and segues. Sir, you are a monster on YouTube. Let's let everybody know what you're doing
Oh
lately
boy.
and where they can find you.
Well, you can find me. I got all my socials. I've got a YouTube, I've got a TikTok, I've got a Twitter, I've got an Instagram. YouTube's my main thing. TikTok probably secondary, followed by Twitter, and then Instagram. Feel free to follow me on all of those. I am pretty active, but YouTube is my bread and butter. Last thing I made was Overthinking It, the most powerful ammo of the DK crew, which on a previous
So fun.
episode of Remember 64, we talked about Donkey Kong 64, so I love it. So anytime to push some content related to that game, I love to do it. And if you like Donkey Kong, if you like slow motion fruit exploding, and if you like the sound of my voice, you'll love this video. So I recommend you go
I
watch
will
it.
say I will interject just slightly and say this video has more in it than you would think. Has different enough. It has enough different aspects in it than you would think when you would first click on it. So just be prepared, and in a good way. Believe me, in a good way. But just be ready for something different, fun, and goofy in the best possible way. So well done, sir.
It's pretty silly. People are latching onto it, which I'm super proud of.
Amazing.
And then one thing I just want to mention. Uh, so Tim Stamper of Rare, because we're talking about Rare, he
Yep.
posted a comment about Banjo Kazooie on Twitter and was like, "Hey, I always intended Banjo to be more than it was, have a bunch of games in the series, grow the fan base." And so I commented on that and I'm like, it can still be that. Long story short, I started really pushing kind of a Twitter campaign of hashtag bring Banjo back in hashtag 2023E. And I've been pushing it every day and it is gaining traction. So if you love Banjo and you love Rare, all I'm asking, go on Twitter, make a post your favorite memory about Banjo, Rareware, anything, any content you have. If you have figures, if you have art, if you love the music, like
Pictures
anything,
of your collection, like
pictures
that,
of
you
your
know.
collection, post it
Yep.
out there, post it on any of your social media. But we're trying to get it trending on Twitter just for the heck of it and really tell Rare, hey, like you got to look at some of your old IPs and bring them back. I think I said in my first tweet, we're starting with Banjo and then we're going to move to Conquer. And then who's to say we won't move to Jet Force Gemini? You
Oh,
know,
please, could we?
let's
Please, could we?
let's keep pushing.
Like I swear this game could definitely be an all-star title with on modern consoles and controls and everything. I
For sure.
honestly do.
Yep,
Like there's so many ideas in this, like we've been talking about, that I think it could stand out. Anyways, yeah, I
definitely.
am with you.
So
Yeah.
just
Yeah, so
throwing that
find
out
all
there.
that you're right, all across social media and everything. Of course, everyone can find me and find this show stuff at Remember 64 show across social media. But other than that, nice to see you again. Nice to talk to you again, man. We'll have you back very soon. Get ready, everybody. We got some big stuff coming. The two of us are doing some awesome stuff, and this show is going to keep kicking some ass. So thanks everyone for joining us on this crazy journey of Jet
Yep.
Force Gemini once again.
Ba-da, ba-da, ba-ba-da.
Yes.